Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. My name is Phuc Duong, senior data engineer for Data Science Dojo, and I'm here to teach you how to web scrape with Python. Okay, so in front of you, you see is actually a website that employs web scraping. So this web scrape's actually a storefront of a website called Steam. So Steam sells video games. And the cool thing about Steam is that they do flash sales every day. So the user has to come back every day and study this page. What is a good deal? What is not a good deal? And it's a lot of information, right? This is how they've gamified shopping online. Now there's a website that actually scrapes Steam's front page in real time and shows you the best deals and ranks them, okay? So a lot of people ask me, how do I get all of my data? And actually, in the absence of APIs, if you learn web scraping, it is actually a very important tool for a data scientist and a data engineer to know, because the entire internet becomes your database, right? So not just I can web scrape any storefront, Nordstrom, Macy's, study the sales, web scrape reviews. I can web scrape baseball stats, baseball players in real time. Wikipedia is also a good place to web scrape. For example, you can see that this frame over here of this Harry Potter character, Ron Weasley, it's very standardized. I could write a web scrape script and then loop over every single Harry Potter character very quickly and create a data set. All right. Today we're going to learn how to do that. Okay, so today I'm on Windows, so you can normally install Python if you're on Linux, but if you're on Windows, I highly recommend installing Anaconda instead. So if you go to Google and just type in Anaconda, it should be continuum.io, and you should just download based upon your operating system. Okay. Next thing I'll be using a text editor called Sublime Text. So you can just go ahead and go to Google and type in Sublime Text and then install that. I like using Sublime Text 3. Okay. All right. So that's where you get those things. All right. So once you've installed this is actually if you're using Anaconda, it's actually a pretty big file. It's like 500 megabytes. Okay. So be warned of that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up my command line. And for those of you who don't know, if you go to a folder, any folder, and then just hold down the shift button and right click and say open command window here, this opens up the command line for you. Okay. And this is where you can work with Python. So if you type in Python right here, right? And if you've installed either Python or Anaconda, well, this should show up, right? So notice I'm using Python 3.5 with Anaconda. And if I just do a very quick 2 plus 2, it should equal 4. That's how I know I'm inside of my console. All right, next thing is, yes, now that I know that, if I push down Control and hit C, Control plus C, basically, if I do a copy on Windows, it will exit this console, okay? And I get back to basically the Windows command line. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and install a package called Beautiful Soup. That's the package that we're going to use to web scrape, actually. It's a very powerful package. I encourage those of you who want to go further beyond this introduction to go ahead and learn this package. So all you got to do is do a pip install BS4. Okay, BS4 stands for Beautiful Soup 4. So here we are. So Beautiful Soup has been installed. And how do I know if it's been installed? Well, if I type in Python, okay, and I type in import BS4 or BS4, right? It should just not error, okay? Awesome. So that's how I know that the package is online and ready to go. All right, next thing I need a web client. So Beautiful Soup is a good way to parse HTML text. That's all its job is. It's a good way to traverse HTML text within Python. Now I actually need a web client to grab something from the internet. And how do you do that in Python is actually you would use a package called URL lib. And inside of URL lib, there's a module called request. And inside of that module is a function called URL open. Okay, I know that's a lot to take in, but settle down. We're going to do it step by step. So I'm going to do a really quick import all in one line kind of step. All right, so I can do from URL lib dot request. All right, so I'm calling a package called URL lib. If you're on Python 2, this is a different package. It's called URL lib 2. All right, so I'm calling a module within that. So notice I'm importing only what I need. I don't need all of URL lib. I just need the request module. And I'm going to import out of that, okay, a URL open, the one basically function that I need. And it's going to import all the basic dependencies as well. And I'm going to give it a name because I don't want to type in URL open every time. Okay, so I want to say uRequest, right? urec for short. That's how I tend to do things. And also, I can also modularize the import of Beautiful Soup as well. So I can do from BS4 okay, import, and this is important, capital B, beautiful, and then capital S for soup. And then I'm just gonna call it as soup, so I don't have to call out beautiful soup again every time I want to use this package, okay? And this is me working in the console. This is me playing around. So if you want to, you can actually start typing it into a script. So in this case, I have Sublime open, and I'm gonna do Control-Shift-P to open up the command console, and then I'm gonna say set syntax is equal to Python, okay? Beautiful. So now I can do the same commands in here. So if I just select this into the command line, hit the enter button, that will copy it. So that way I can paste it into my script here, okay? So there I have it, the first 2 lines of this. So now I'm ready to go. So beautiful soup is gonna parse the HTML text, and then URL lib is actually gonna grab the page itself. But what do we want to web scrape, okay? Well, I like graphics cards, okay? I'm gonna web scrape graphics cards off Newegg.com. So some of you might know it. It's basically Amazon, but for basically hardware of electronics. Okay, so I'm going to type in, for example, graphics cards. So these are a bunch of graphics cards that have shown up in my search bar. And it would be nice to basically tabularize and turn this into a data set. And notice that if a new data set, if a new graphics card is introduced tomorrow, or if ratings change tomorrow, or if prices change tomorrow, I run the script again and it updates it into basically whatever it is that I'm going to load it into. I can load it into a database, a CSV file, an Excel file. It doesn't matter. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to grab this URL. Okay. That's all I'm gonna do is, so basically I'm gonna copy this URL and I'll paste it into my script. So in this case, I can do my URL is equal to, all right, so that is the URL I want to use of this, okay? And in this case, I will actually run it in my console, right? So when I'm web scraping, I like to also prototype it into the command line as well, so I know that the script is gonna work. Okay, and then once I know that it works, I will go ahead and paste that back into my Sublime. Okay, so this is my URL, right? So I've gone ahead and called a variable and placed a string of the URL into it. Okay, now this is gonna be good. So now I will actually open up my web client. So in this case, I would do uRequest, right? So notice I'm calling URL lib, and I'm calling it from the shorthand variable that I called it earlier. So notice I called from URL lib.request import URL open as uRequest. So I'm actually calling the function called URL open right now instead of a module called request inside of a package called URL lib. Right. All right. So the next thing is I'm going to throw my URL into this thing. Okay. So what this is going to do is going to open up basically a connection. It's going to open up this connection, grab the web page, and basically just download it. So it's a client. So I'm going to call it a uClient is equal to uRequest of my URL. Okay, it's gonna take a while depending on your internet connection because it's actually downloading the web page. And notice that, okay, it's done. So the minute I want it, I can do a read, right? A uClient.read. Now if I do read, it's gonna dump everything out of this right away. I can't reuse it, right? So before it gets dumped, I wanna store it into something, a variable. So I'm gonna call, I guess, page underscore. Since this is the raw HTML, I'm just going to call it HTML. Okay, page HTML is equal to uClient.read. Okay, so I can go ahead and show you this thing, but it might, depending on how big the HTML file is, I can actually crash the console. So I'm going to show it to you once it's inside of Beautiful Soup. So bear with me here. Okay, and with any web client, since this is an open internet connection, I want to actually close it when I'm done with it. So uClient.close is what I'm going to do. Okay, and knowing that all of these lines of code have worked so far, I can just go ahead and copy them into my script. Okay, so my URL is that, and uClient is, and just add some documentation, opening up connection, grabbing the page. Okay, and then what this does is it offloads the content into a variable. Okay. And then what this is going to do is going to close the client. Okay, then the next thing I need to do is I need to parse the HTML, because right now the HTML is a big jumble of text. Okay, so what I need to do right now is I need to call the soup function that I made earlier. So notice I called from BS4 import beautiful soup as soup. So if I call soup as a function, it's going to call the beautiful soup function within the BS4 package. Okay, so in this case I will do soup of basically my page HTML. Okay. And then if I do a comma here, I will have to tell it how to parse it, because it could be an XML file, or in this case, I will tell it to parse it as an HTML parsed file. Okay. And I need to store it into a variable, or else it's going to get lost. Okay. So in this case, I'll call it a page soup. Okay. So this is I know it's kind of weird that they call it a soup. Okay, but it's standard notation now. When you say soup, people understand that this is the data type of it. It's derived from the beautiful soup package. Okay. All right. So in this case, this does my HTML parsing. Okay. So now if I go to the page soup and I just try to look at the h1 tag, page soup.h1, I should see the header of the page. So this should say video cards and video devices. Okay, so I should see that somewhere. So notice that it grabbed this header right here. Okay, and just for good measure, let's just see what else is in the page. So beautiful soup dot, maybe there's a p tag in there I can look at. So newegg.com, a great place to buy computers. So if I think that actually might be at the very bottom. Great place to, actually no, it might be something that's hidden. Okay, it might be just in a tagline. All right, but I am on this page. Okay. So now we need to do is traverse the HTML. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert every graphics card that I see into a line item, into a CSV file. Okay. So to do that, to traverse, now I have a beautiful soup data type, I can actually traverse basically the DOM elements of this HTML page. So let me show you how to do that real quickly. So if I inspect the element, okay, of this page, right? So if I go find the body tag, for example, I think the body tag, nope, it starts off as a, yep, it starts off as a body, right? So if I do a body, right, the page soup dot body, and then I can keep going. I can keep going dot within the, so notice that this body tag can go even further into an A tag or a span tag. So if I type in the span tag, I should find this span tag. So body dot span. See that? Span class, no CSS, skip 2. See that? No CSS, skip 2. Okay, that's awesome. So the next thing I'm going to do, let me just make this HTML a little bit bigger so you guys can see it even further. All right. So what I want is actually, if I'm in Chrome, you can also use the Firefox Firebug to inspect the HTML elements of a page. So I'm going to just actually select the name of this graphics card right here, and try to inspect its element, right? It jumps me directly to this A tag. Okay, it jumps me directly into this A tag, and I want to grab the entire container that the graphics card is in, because I know the graphics card container contains other goodies, such as the original price, its sales price, its make, its review type, and the card image itself. So if I go out, okay, so it says HTML is an embedded kind of tagging language. I can go out until I find what it is that is containing all of this, right? So notice that this div right here with the class of item-container contains and houses all of the items inside of this thing. So basically, I would need to set a loop. I would write my script first on how to parse one graphics card. And then once I'm done with that, I can loop through all of the class containers and go ahead and parse out every single graphics card into my data file. So in this class, I need this class, okay? I want to grab everything that has this class. So I want to go ahead and do that right now. So I want to go to, so my page soup, there is a function called find all, okay? And it's capital A will find all. And I want to find, what do I want to find? I want to find all divs, right, that have the class item-container. So I would go back and I would say, find me all divs, okay, comma, and then I would feed it an object. And the object says, what is the name of the tag that you're looking for? So it's a class, okay. If it was an ID, I would put ID here. And then I would go ahead and paste in the item-container is what it's called, right? So in this case, I will feed this into a variable called, I guess, containers, right? We'll call it by what the class is. So I'm going to copy this as well and paste it into my script. Hopefully it works. Okay. So from this, I will grabs each product. Okay. So notice that even though I'm writing this for graphics cards, I'm betting that Newegg is actually standardized its HTML enough so that I can actually parse any page, any product on on Newegg if I just run the script over. So if I call this containers, okay, so let's check the length of the containers. Let's see how many things did it find. So it found 12 objects, right? So it found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it found 12 graphics cards, basically, is what that did. Okay, and look, there's 6 of them. So yes, that is true. Okay, so let's look at the first one. So if I go to containers of the 0 index, I should see the HTML for this thing. Okay, so I am actually just gonna copy this out into basically my text file, and I'm gonna read it in there. Okay, because sometimes when you load a page, there are some post loading done via JavaScript, right? And some things will show up, some things won't show up. So just to be sure, I'm just gonna paste it into my Sublime, and from my Sublime, I can go ahead and figure out what is actually in there. So I'm gonna go Control New in Sublime, paste it in, but notice it's not very pretty, so we'll deal with that in a minute. So I'm gonna set my syntax to become HTML. Okay, it's in HTML now, but it's not pretty. I'm gonna use an external service called JS Beautifier, so it's gonna basically do all the spacing when there needs to be spacing. So JS Beautifier, you basically just copy an ugly code and it turns it pretty. See that? Everything is all now nicely spaced and delimited. Okay, so here we go. Now let's read what's actually in this thing. So if I open this up now, and that's going to be a little bit hard to read. What kind of things do we want out of this thing? So if we go through, we can see that there's some pretty useful things. We can see that the items have ratings. It has a product name. We want to grab the product name for sure. Let's see. There is its brand, right? I can grab its brand by so notice that they call the image the name of the brand, which is useful. So if I grab the title of this image, so notice that the image itself, it says EVGA, but that's an image, right? I can't grab that image, well, I can grab the image. I just can't parse what it says unless I use image recognition. But notice that the title encodes what type of brand it is for us. So that's very convenient. So this is something that we want to grab. And also I want to be sure I want to grab things that are true of everything, right? So if not, I'm gonna have to run into some corner case if-else statements. So notice that this guy right here is special. He doesn't have any egg reviews, right? So if I wrote something to parse reviews, I'm gonna need to write an if-else statement, or I'm gonna have to do a try and catch with an index out of error catch, okay? And then notice that it doesn't even have what this number is. I think it's the number of reviews here. So I'll let you guys go ahead and handle the scraping of that, but I'm going to scrape things that are present in all of them. So notice that I'm going to scrape the names. So all of them seem to have the names of the brand, or the names of the product, and then I'm going to go ahead and scrape the product itself. And not all of them have a price. You see that? I have to add it to the cart to see the price. Okay? And let's see what else is here. And they all seem to have shipping. So I'm going to grab shipping to see how much they all cost. So once you learn how to scrape one, it's the same really for all of it. Now, if you want to loop through all of it, you have to do those if-else statements to catch all the use cases that aren't there. So notice that if I do a container right now, a container of 0, okay, so a container of 0, so I'm gonna throw container 0 into just a variable called container, because later I'm going to do a for loop that says for every container in containers, right? So right now I'm prototyping the loop, okay, before I want to build the loop, okay? So I want to make sure it works once before I even build the loop. So this container contains a single graphics card in it, okay? Oh, I will call it container instead of contain. All right, so container dot what? Let's see what is in here. So notice that container dot a would bring me this thing back. So if I do container dot a, this brings me back exactly what I thought it would. It would bring me the item image, okay? So the item image, not that useful to us. Let's see if there's anything that we can redeem in here. The title, we might be able to redeem the title, but it seems that we can also grab that down here, which I think this might be the more official way to grab it. So let's grab it from there instead, because that's what the customer sees. That's what you will see when you go ahead and visit this page. So we will go, instead of doing .a, we will do .div. We'll go jump from this A directly into this div. Okay, so I'll go ahead and push up and say container.div. So that will jump me into this div right here and everything inside of it. Okay, boom. Okay, so if I go into that container.div, I will just probably assume this is the right one. I know this web scraping HTML tends to be hard because it hurts your eyes unless you know how to read HTML very well. But it's something just to get used to. Okay, so I know that I'm in this div and I want to go into another div called item branding. Okay, so div.div, right? And inside of that div, there is, I think, an A tag, right? This A tag actually contains some things that we want, which is this guy right here. What is the make of this graphics card? .div.a. Okay. And there we have it. So here's the href of the link. Okay. So what I'm grabbing is this guy right here. This EVGA thing that I'm grabbing. Notice I hover. It's a clickable link. That link is this guy right here. But what I really want is this title, the title of this link. Okay. So what do I want? I want to do container.a.image. Okay, so I want to grab this image tag now. So notice I'm just using these handlers. I'm referencing it as if it was a JSON file. Okay, and notice that I'm inside of the image now. So the image is here. Now I need to grab this title. Okay, so this is an attribute inside of the image tag. So how do you grab an attribute? Well, you would reference it as if it was an index, or a dictionary. So I would say title of this is equal to EVGA. Okay, so that now that I've prototyped it, I can go ahead and add that to my script. Right, so I can go ahead and just copy this right here and paste that into my script. Okay, so inside of my script, this is where I actually can do that preemptive loop now. I can write that loop now. So for container in containers, okay, it's gonna go loop through and it's gonna grab container.div.div.a.image of that title is going to equal to the brand or the make, right? So that's the first thing I grabbed. So who makes this graphics card? That's the first thing it's going to do. So what else do I want to grab while I'm inside of this thing? So let's grab two more things, right? Just grab two more things just to have a really good CSV file, because a CSV file with one column seems a little tiny bit pointless. All right, the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and grab the name of this graphics card, which is right here. And notice that it's embedded within this A tag, and this A tag is embedded within this div tag, and this div tag is embedded within this div tag. So in theory, if we do a container, okay, .div.div.a, it actually brings out, it seems like it brought out the item brand instead. So the item brand is actually this A tag, which is not what we wanted. We wanted this A tag, okay? So notice that it's having trouble finding this particular A tag. So what I want to do actually is I want to do, I can do a find all and find just the direct class that I want, okay? So in this case, I can do a find me all the A tags that have item.title, okay? So in this case, I can do container.findAll. Container.findAll is equal to, I want to see the A tag, okay, comma, and then I want to throw it into an object, and the object is, I'm going to say look for all classes that will go ahead and start with item title. Okay, so this will give me an object back, basically a data structure back that has everything that it found. So hopefully it should only be one thing so that we don't have to loop over it. So in this case, container equals that, which will be title underscore container. Okay, so if I look at the title underscore container, I should have what I'm looking for. Beautiful. So the name of the graphics card is somewhere in this thing. So I'm going to put this and I'm going to throw it into my script so I can run it later. Okay, so going back. All right, so the title container. So notice this isn't the actual title yet. I still have to extract the title out of this thing. So my title container is, notice that it's inside of this bracket, which means it's inside of an array. Okay, or in this case, it's a list if you're in Python. So in this case, if I go to 0, I want to grab the first object, and inside of that first object, I want to grab, I think this is, nope, it's not inside of the I tag. It's actually a text inside of the A tag. So if I do .text, okay, this should get me what I want. Yes. So I do title.of0.text, and that gives me exactly what I want. So I want to place that in there, and I want to call this the title, so the product name. Okay, so product name is equal to title container .text. Okay, so that is that. So I've grabbed the brand the make of the graphics card, and the name of the graphics card again. And now we can go ahead and grab shipping, because shipping seems like something else that they might all have. Okay, so what we're going to do is figure out where this shipping tag is inside of all of it. How much does it cost for shipping? Because I think some of them cost differently for shipping. Yep, this is $4.99 shipping, okay? So in this case, I need to find all LI classes. Basically, LI stands for list, with the class price dash ship. Okay, so I want to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to copy this class, and I want to do container dot find all of I think it's an li, correct? Yep, li comma of class is equal to price ship. Okay, and this will give me hopefully a shipping container. Shipping underscore container. And hopefully there should only be one tag in this thing that has shipping in it. Oh, and I need to close that function. So my shipping underscore container, actually if I can just copy this. Okay, shipping container. You can see that it gives me back an array of things that qualify. So in this case, only one thing came back. So I can do that same thing I do earlier where I reference the first element, and then I think it's also in the text again, right? So I can do dot text again. And this brings me back. It looks like there's a lot of open space. So notice there's a return, and then there's a new line. There's return, and then there's a new line. So in this case, I want to clean it up a little bit because I just want the text. So in this case, I will say strip. So strip removes white space before, after, new lines, all that good stuff. So it just says free shipping now. So I can go ahead and grab this, okay, and throw it into my script as well. So now I've grabbed three things. So in this case, I also need the find all that I did earlier. So if I go up a few times, I can find it. So the shipping container itself will be placed in here. And then if I close actually the find all function, there we go. So now I have three things that I want. So the product name, the brand, and the shipping container will be actually shipping. Okay, so cool. So now this is ready to be looped through. But before that, I want it to basically print it out. Okay, so this is, I'm going to show you why Sublime is my favorite editor. It does multi-line editing. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and enter 3 blank lines. I'm going to copy my 3 variables. Okay, copy, copy, copy. I'm going to paste them in here. I'm going to just go ahead and make this nice and formatted. So I'm going to print all of these things out into the console just so I can see. So in this case, I will copy this as well. So that way I can go ahead and just say quote and then paste that so I can see what it is when it actually does print out. And then I can do a plus for a string concatenation. It's going to print each of these 3 things out for me. So the brand, the product name, and the shipping. And basically, before I throw this into a CSV file, I want to just make sure that this loop works. So I want to save this web scrape thing tool. I want to call this web my first web scrape.py. Okay. So if I open this, there should be a file here. If I right click and open up another console, so notice I have a console before, but this one's running Python. I want to open up this one now, and I want to tell it. So notice that I'm inside of this file path now. So this file path is a file path that contains this script already in it. So what I need to do is just do Python. So I want to tell it to run Python, and I want to tell it, okay, now that I'm in Python, execute this script. So my first web scrape.py. I hit enter, and then hopefully, look at that. It went through, it did that loop, and it grabbed every other graphics card for me. So all I have to do now is throw this into a CSV file, and I can then open it in Excel. So let's go ahead and do that real quick, just finish up our code. And I don't really need the prototype for this, because I know that this script works now. Okay, so to open up a file, you would do just a simple open. And then in this case, I need a file name. So the file name is equal to, I guess, products.csv. Okay, so I want to open up a file name, and I need to instantiate a mode. So in this case, W for write. So I want to open up a new file and write it in it. So this will be called F. Okay, so the normal convention for a file writer is F. And I want to write the headers to this thing. So in this case, F.write is equal to, now I need to call some headers. So a CSV file usually has headers. So in this case, headers will equal to, I think I'll make it brand name. Let's call it product name. Because if you load this into a SQL database later, name is a keyword in SQL. So product name, and then I'll call this shipping. Okay, and then I also need to add a new line because CSVs are delimited by new line. So I'm going to tell it to write the first line to be a header. Okay, and then the next thing is I want to tell it to every time to loop through, I want it to write a file. Okay, so instead of printing it to the console, which I'll let it do actually, I'm going to do f.write. So f.write is going to write, so these three things. So product name, shipping. So if I paste that in there, that's going to paste all three of them for me. But what I need to do is actually concatenate them together. Okay, and I need to concatenate them with actually a comma in the middle. So comma. And let me just double check something real quick. See if my strings are clean, and no, it is not. So notice that the product names have commas inside of them. So what that's going to do is it's going to create extra columns right inside of my CSV file. So before I print the product names out, I actually need to do a string replace. So I need to call a replace function. As every time you see a comma, let's replace it with something else. And I like to do a pipe, but you can delimit it by anything you want, right? This is programming. You can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't error. All right. So in this case, I would go ahead and do that. And also, don't forget this, it needs to be delimited by a new line, okay? So it's gonna, every time it's gonna loop through, it's gonna grab and parse all of the data points, and then it's gonna write it to a file as a line in the file. And then what I need to do is once it's done looping, I will have to close the file, because if you don't close the file, you can't open the file, okay? Because only one thing can open the file at a time. All right. So I will run the script again. So I notice if I just push up, it runs the script. So you have to save the script first. I'm going to do a Control S to quickly save it. I'm going to do Control, syntax error. I forgot to add a concatenation with the plus n. Okay, so I need to do a plus n to tell it to concatenate that. So I'll go Python, my first web scrape. It went through. So after running that script, it's gone ahead, it scraped everything, it printed everything to the console, but more importantly, it wrote everything to this file, right? I told it to write everything to the CSV file. So if I open it up right now, you can see that it has gone ahead and scraped the entire page and thrown every data point as a row, every product as a row into the CSV file. So you can go ahead and scrape the other details as well, like whether or not it is a sales price or not, what the image tag might be, and then if there's multiple pages, right? So if you go to Amazon, for example, there's multiple pages of probably products, so you can start looping through. So usually up here, there's a page equals something, so you can just do a loop and just say, in this case, do page 2 instead of page 1. And that concludes today's lesson on how to web scrape with Python. And I hope you guys learned a lot and had fun doing it. Now, I want to really know from you guys, did you guys enjoy this kind of video? Do you guys want more coding videos, more data science videos? And if there's a better way to code something, also let me know. I'm always happy to hear from you guys. What do you guys enjoy? I want to make this content for you guys. All right, now I'll see you guys later, and happy coding.